Welcome, folks, and we're going to go through 7 simple exercises to help get you ready for Ironman Austria. The first one we're going to talk about is squats, and with each of the exercises we're also going to look at different variations with equipment, without equipment, also from a beginner level to somebody who's a little more advanced. So the first exercise are squats with no weights whatsoever, just using your own body weight as a form of resistance. So what you want to do is start with your feet about hip-width apart to help counterbalance and to keep your arms up. And it's just pretending to sit into a chair. Okay? If I go down and I can still wiggle my toes a little bit, that's perfect. What you don't want is all of your weight going forward. So again, hands out in front, just go down a little bit and then up again. Another thing you want to make sure is try not to let your knees buckle in or out as you're doing the exercise. And then from the side, what it should look like, again, if my hips are going back, I don't want my knees to go forward. So as I'm pretending to sit in a chair, it's going to look like this. Again, I can wiggle my toes, so all the weight is not going forward, it's back, the weight's on my heels, and my hips are back. So I'll do 10 to 15. At a fair tempo and even pace. If doing it without dumbbells eventually becomes too easy, you can hang on the dumbbells, one in each hand, and the exact same thing applies. Again, I'm going to try and keep the weight on my heels, my hips are going back, and I'll just keep the weight on my side. Okay, so the second exercise are lunges, but a good progression is actually just going up and down on the spot first to start to make sure you're comfortable with this movement. So what you're trying to do is take your weight down and then up. Okay, so you can go back into a standing position. So again, from a standing position with one leg further than the other, you're going to try and still keep the weight on the front heel, but take your weight down. Okay, go ahead, Sean, down, and then back up again. Okay, so both legs stay on the ground. All the weight primarily is on the front heel, and again, you're trying to take your weight down and then up again, okay? Without taking your weight forward. So you notice Sean's going to do it again, and his weight is on his heel, and essentially his knee is staying over his ankle. Just try one more. Perfect. So the next progression after doing the still or static lunges are actually moving forward and back. Okay, go ahead. But the same thing applies. You want to take your weight down and back. Okay, try again. So again, notice that Sean's weight is not going forward as he lunges. It's going straight down and then back. And he's kicking back with his heel, not his toe. Try again. And then back. So once he's done 10 to 15 on his left leg, he'll do 10 to 15 on his right leg. Okay, so again, notice that Sean's back is straight. He's not leaning forward, and his weight is going back, kicking back with his heel. Okay. So once doing it forward and back becomes a little too easy, the next progression is obviously being able to use dumbbells, and exactly the same form applies. Go ahead. So Sean is not going to let the dumbbells swing forward as he kicks back. Okay? Back again. So the final progression is actually being able to do walking lunges. Go ahead. So again, notice that Sean's back is straight. His weight is going down as he lunges or steps, not forward. Good. Next exercise are push-ups, and there's several variations. No matter how strong you are, you still will be able to do one of these variations. So the first one, knees on the ground, hands on a bench. I'm simply going to bring my chest to the bench and out. Again, the goal is to try and do as many as you can to challenge yourself. The next progression, same thing, bringing my chest to the bench, but now my knees are off the ground. Okay? Same thing. I'm going to try and do as many as I can, just like that. Final progression is doing push-ups on the floor without the bench. And again, I can start with my knees on the ground, and then when that becomes too easy, I can do it with my knees off the ground. So if you're at the gym and you have access to a bench and dumbbells, beyond push-ups would be another challenge doing incline press. So Sean's going to take the dumbbells onto his side, and then rather than arms and elbows out, Sean's going to do it with his elbows a little closer to his body. Go ahead. Pressing up and slowly down. So coming down a little slower than he's pressing, and try not to let the dumbbells touch your shoulders as it comes down, and then pressing up. Try not to lock your elbows. When he's done, he's going to bring the dumbbells back to his lap, then sit up, and he's finished. Next exercise, which is the opposite of the pushing exercises that we just did, are any type of a rope or a pull. So using any tube or surgical tube, hang it to something that's not movable, and then simply pulling the tube in towards your chest. The goal is to try and squeeze your shoulder blades together as you're doing it. So pull it in and let it down slow. If you have access to dumbbells, then another option instead of the row with the tube is just doing a one-arm row, especially if you have one arm that's stronger than the other. So one arm on something, again, that's stable to support yourself, one leg further forward than the other leg, and again, I'm just trying to arc the dumbbell back towards my rib cage and down slowly. Final progression, instead of using the tube or instead of using the dumbbell, is doing pulls inverted. So on a rack, again, you'd be able to find that at most gyms. Make sure the bar is stable, and make sure that when you're down, you can straighten your arms completely. So I'm going to keep my hips off the ground, just my heels on the ground, and I'm going to pull towards the bar. So before we do the crunches in the lower back on the ball, just one quick question that I usually get about the size of the ball and how big should it be. The way you know it is too big is if your knee is below your hip. So right now Sean's knee is just slightly above his hip, which means the size of that ball is perfect. So again, what you want is your knee either slightly higher than your hip or parallel with your hip for the size of the ball. If your knee is lower, the ball is too big. So just a couple of exercises for your core. First one is doing crunches on the ball. So you'll lie back so that the small of your back is supported on the ball. You can keep your hands at your side, your belly button, on your chest, or your head. The higher your hands are, the harder the exercise. So Sean's just going to start with his hands across his chest, and then looking up at the ceiling, he's going to crunch up. And then back down, crunching up again. And again, he's doing it very slowly, very controlled. The point is to try and keep the ball as still as possible as you're doing the exercise. So the opposites of the crunches that we just did on the ball are doing lower back extensions on the ball. So again, hand position is going to increase the difficulty of the exercise if you take it further towards your head or even above your head. So Sean's just going to start with his hands at his side and then lifting his chest up and then down slowly. Okay, so again, the goal is to try and keep the ball as still as possible as you're doing it. So the final exercise for your hamstrings are leg curls with the ball. So what Sean's going to do is keep his hands on the ground. He's going to lift his hips off the ground. Again, trying to keep the ball still, and then he's going to curl the ball towards him while he's pointing his toes towards himself as well. And then out slowly. So again, not only is this going to be a challenge for your core, but obviously your hamstrings as well. And you will feel it a little in your calf too. To increase the difficulty, if doing 15 of this becomes far too easy, you can do one leg at a time. So what Sean's going to do, he's going to take one leg off the ball, still hips up, and then he's going to curl the ball towards him. But again, understand that this is a significantly difficult progression.